Disclaimer: the content provided in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. While we discuss topics related to mental health advice, life wisdom, and alike, the opinions expressed are personal views of the hosts and do not constitute professional, legal, or medical advice. We make no representations or warranties about the accuracy or completeness of the information discussed. Any action you take based on the information in this podcast is strictly at your own risk, and we are not liable for any losses or damages in connection with its use. Additionally, this podcast may contain discussions around addictions, substances, which are intended for adult audiences. We do not endorse any illegal activities. Please consult your local laws before engaging in any actions related to this content. By listening to this podcast, you agree that you are over the age of 18 or the age of majority in your jurisdiction and understand the terms of this disclaimer.
Welcome to the Balancing Forces podcast, where two opposites collide in the best way possible. One brings the fire,
the other keeps it chill.
But together we share life's lessons, hard-earned wisdom,
advice you can actually use.
Whether you need a fresh perspective or just a laugh, we're here to elevate your mind. So buckle up, because things are about to get real and
really funny.
So, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you're doing all the things to manifest? Journaling, visualizing, raising your vibe? But your dream still feels like a really cute cloud that just keeps drifting out of reach? That's not your fault. You're manifesting with Jupiter, the planet of expansion, of vision, of dreaming big and feel good. And yes, Jupiter is the party. It's that high frequency energy that says, you can have more, you are meant for more. But here's the truth. Jupiter gives you the dream, but Saturn builds the damn road. Saturn is structure. Saturn is systems. Saturn is showing up even when you don't feel like it. Saturn says, you want it? Cool. Let's get to work. Real manifestation? It's a cosmic collab. Jupiter for the vision, Saturn for the follow-through. You don't just need the vibe. You need the vessel to hold it. So ask yourself, are you dreaming or building? The universe isn't just listening. It's watching what you build. Manifestation isn't just vibes, it's engineering your evolution. Inside the Alchemist Laboratory, we don't just vibe high and journal pretty affirmations. We build systems for your soul. We map transits into the body using your solar map so you know when to dream and when to design. And we help you create sustainable magic, not just spiritual highs. Chapter 44, Breakup Myths. It was mutual, and let's be friends. All sorts of blather gets said at the ending of a relationship, most of it very well-intentioned, some of it absolute nonsense despite being well-intentioned. Unfortunately, some of what gets said isn't outright malicious, but it can be quite selfish, to the detriment of the other person and ultimately oneself. This is not to say that we ought to not be selfish. Truth is, too many relationships get strung out well past their freshness date because one or two people are afraid to be a bit selfish and look out for their own spiritual and relationship needs and subsequently take honest action. However, the ugly selfishness is found most often not in the what or even why, but in how it's done. And often the how goes much better when we best understand the whys. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Grandma Charlotte Erlandson. Relationships end for the same reasons they started. Ever been in a relationship where your partner has certain attributes that you either really liked in the early years or you simply were able to overlook, but as time went further along, you found yourself disliking those attributes more and more? Sure, we have all been in that situation. Maybe it's that your partner never apologizes, never forgives, is a crappy communicator, fights a lot, is always crabby, not outright mean, but just crabby and insensitive, eats too much, doesn't eat, feels like she has one foot in and one foot out of the relationship, doesn't shower, has been taking advantage of you for years, has wicked breath, takes you for granted, doesn't work, works too much, is just someone you don't respect, has a bold, brash family, has an insanely boring family, stays in a lot, is never fully present, goes out a lot, is a heavy drinker, doesn't drink, doesn't play well on the team, nags a lot. That notion of tolerating or even outright liking something at one point and then later on not enjoying it is a simple little example of the very truth that feelings change, even on a micro level. But they not only change, they change even though the behavior has not changed. In other words, a person can be engaged in some behavior you tolerate or even like. Then, 3 years later, they're doing the exact same behaviors to the exact same degree, but now, 3 years later, it's not cute, not fun, and doesn't feel good. In other words, they didn't change, you did. The point I am making here is not about attributes and behavioral reasons for breakups. No, it's a larger point. It's about feel. Specifically, how you feel about a person is not always tied up in an action or behavior. It's tied up in the forces beyond our control. It's tied up in the whim and the fancy of the gods themselves, the universe, Cupid, God, soul. How else do you explain that the exact behaviors of your mate have not changed, yet your feel towards that person, your chemistry in the relationship has changed? In other words, if how you feel about someone were solely tied up in their behaviors, then you would either never have liked them or their poor communication and nagginess in the beginning, or you would still like it today, years later. If anything, in all likelihood, their nagging and communication have actually become not as bad as they were before, because you've likely said something and they've changed somewhat. You've worn them down a bit, shaving off the rough edges. So the problem has actually gotten better, but your feelings have gotten worse. How the heck do you explain that? But I ask the question only rhetorically. The real issue I'm getting at here is that at the end of a relationship, all that matters is feel, not reasons. The reasons or actions are irrelevant and perhaps never changed. All relationships end for the same reason. One person just doesn't feel it anymore. It's not about reasons, logic, or you did this, or you didn't do this, or that. It's about the simple fact, after all the reasons and circumstances are taken into consideration, I just don't feel it for you anymore. Whatever their actions are, abusing drugs, abusing me, not working for a long time, being a bad mom, just being a jerk, simple chronic halitosis, or a million other reasons, what matters is that I no longer feel it for him or her. The actions and words contribute to the feelings or lack of feelings. But when it comes down to it, the relationship ends because of feelings. Whatever those feelings might be that cause you to end a relationship. Maybe it's lack of security, lack of fun, too much craziness, too much heaviness, or what have you. Relationships end because the feel has changed. Whatever the feelings are that cause you to end a relationship, they have clearly come up and reached the point where you're walking away. You can say it's about the actions, but it's really about the feeling. And that's why I generally recommend to couples that they not get caught up in the whys of a breakup, other to simply say, I just don't feel it anymore. Getting caught up in denouncing the other person's actions only creates neurosis in them and the storylines for future relationships. They begin to define themselves by the actions you call out as negative, and it's not your business to define another person's identity. It's your job to get out of a relationship if you no longer feel it, but do not do harm on the way. Interestingly, relationships end for the same reasons they began, the feel, not reasons, feel. Every single one of us has been in the beginning dating stage of a potential relationship and found ourselves sitting across the table from someone who has all sorts of wonderful attributes. I mean, a really great guy or a woman, smart, funny, attractive, or what have you. But for some reason, or for no reason at all, you just don't feel it for this person. A truly wonderful person, but no chemistry between the two of you. No feel inside of you for this person, right? We've all experienced that at some point or another, and there's nothing wrong with that. Either you feel it or you don't. Conversely, you can sit across the table from someone who doesn't look nearly as good on paper or even in person, or doesn't meet what you thought were all your criteria, but for some doggone reason or for no explicable reason, you both feel really drawn to each other. There's an admiration, a chemistry, vibe, feel, and whatever else. We get into relationships because of feel, not reasons. We get out of relationships because, in the end, it just doesn't feel good anymore, whatever the reasons. But focusing on or even articulating the reasons at the end of a relationship really does no one any good. The courage to break it up. Many people come to me for counseling considering ending relationships. Yet, very often, the thing stopping them from divorcing is that they fear looking like the bad guy, fear hurting the other person, fear being overwhelmed by the other person's reasoning and arguments, talking them out of it, fear the inevitable pain that comes from breakups, pain from ending a relationship with someone you no longer love or someone you still love but aren't in love with. But when we understand that breakups are really, at their core, about feelings and not reasons, it alleviates a great amount of the burden. Because the simple fact of the matter is that you cannot control your true feelings. You cannot control whom you love. You really can't. Think about that. We do not choose love, love chooses us. Unknown. If you fear your partner overwhelming you, trying to talk you out of the breakup, as they likely have done with 100 other things previously, else you wouldn't be afraid of them doing so this time, getting mad, or offering some other negative response, simply keep coming back to this one thing: feel. When you simply don't feel it anymore, there is no amount of talking or cajoling that can change your feelings. They may say your feelings will change if they do X, Y, or Z, but the truth is that they likely won't change their actions for long because they've not even touched the underlying beliefs driving the behaviors. And your feelings won't change at all because if you've reached the level of clarity of feelings that you're willing to act on them, then those same feelings are strong enough to not be swayed. You may get talked into staying a while or going back, but deep down your feelings haven't changed and they won't change, despite all of your partner's pleading. Clarity of feelings is an incredibly powerful thing, so focus on the loss of chemistry. Keep coming back to the simple truth that you just don't feel it anymore, and it has been this way for a long time, long enough for you to realize and act on that you just don't want to be here anymore. The heart has its reasons that the reasons cannot know. Blaise Pascal. Regarding looking like the bad guy, you are going to look that way, at least to the other person, perhaps even to a few others. But it is alleviated by the fact that it's feelings that you simply cannot change. You've not only done everything you can, but simply no longer feel it. It simply is what it is. There is no compromise. In fact, the giant problem in the past is that you did compromise your feelings, and now you're simply unwilling to compromise your feelings anymore. That is a good thing. Regarding hurting the other person, you will. The more they are enmeshed in this relationship, the more they draft their own sense of identity from the relationship, and or the more they get some needed sense of security from the relationship, the more this breakup is going to hurt them. But again, the consolation to yourself, if not to them, is that this simply is how you feel, and you cannot die inside anymore. The short-term pain your partner will experience upon losing a relationship pales compared to the long-term pain you would experience if you stayed in a relationship wherein you just don't feel it anymore, not to mention the pain they're certainly experiencing in the relationship. Regarding the inevitable breakup pain, yeah, you're going to feel it, and it stinks. But the consolation comes from knowing that you have to do this, knowing that you're honoring your feelings, and knowing that despite the short term dip in feelings, the long term gain in feel in your life will radically increase. If for no other reason than you're cutting a major negative energy source out of your life. Don't tell your partner that because he or she will think they are the major negative energy source, when in fact the negative energy source is the relationship, the lack of all around chemistry, the absence of feel. The ending of a relationship is clean when it focuses on feel. Things get murky and relationships get protracted when we get into reasons, actions, wherefores, and why nots. That's when things get drawn out for more months and years. By acting on feel requires trusting feel. More importantly, it requires believing that your feelings matter, which, of course, goes completely contrary to everything you've been taught about yourself your entire life. Until you give credence to your feelings, nothing changes. Credence comes from the Latin I believe. Until you believe in you and your feelings, ain't nothing gonna change. Until you believe in you and the power of the universe speaking through your body and the feel of things, you will never have the courage to live deliberately, live your truth, and be, say, do, have, believe, become who you truly are. And really, what option do you have? If you choose to not break up because you don't want to look like the bad guy, don't want to hurt the other person, and or don't want to experience that breakup pain yourself, you're basically staying in a relationship that you're not fully in. You've got one foot in the relationship, if that, and one foot out of the relationship. We only enjoy something to the degree that we're in it. And if you've got one foot in and one foot out, you're not going to enjoy it, which means you'll be sucking life out of the relationship or what's left of it and out of the other person, and all because you don't want to hurt their feelings or look like the bad guy. So basically, you're using them so that you don't have to go through the pain or look bad. You're using someone you claim to love or at least care about. You're lying flat out to them so that you don't have to do the hard work of ending something that you know for a fact you're done with. That's not just cowardice, it's malicious. What does it say about you that you would rather hurt someone you love long term than stand up, have courage, and hurt them short term to save them long term pain? And in fact, set them free to go live and find someone who truly loves them. See, this is why people cheat. Crazy as it sounds, I wrote a whole book about it. It's easier to cheat and thereby blow up a relationship than it is to just end a relationship that needs to be put to death. Why? That grand fear of looking like the bad guy? And that even grander fear of having the courage to speak your truth, to look someone in the eye and simply be fully doggone honest. Don't be that guy who uses, who chooses the coward's path. Don't be that woman. Stand up. Matter. Speak your truth. Live it. Let's be friends. And so, because ending relationships is just doggone hard, one of the things we say to assuage the pain, either the pain in ourselves or our mate, is to say the classic line, well, let's be friends. And it's a nice thought. We're trying to let the other person down nicely, but it never works. Never. At least not in the short term. Why? One person is always holding on when a relationship ends. One person is still clinging. Truth is, you wouldn't be saying, let's be friends, unless you sort of already knew one of you was holding on. So you say it, or they do it. But what that seemingly nice phrase does to a breakup is extend it on and on. One person keeps thinking there's hope for reconciliation when there's really not. The only reason that hope for reconciliation even exists is because one person didn't have the courage to do the difficult act of bringing a hard stop to the relationship. The pain for both parties becomes protracted when one person keeps clinging and trying to weasel their way back in, and when one person grows exhausted that their partner just isn't getting the hint. Ugh. You want them to get the hint despite the fact that you didn't have the courage to give a hard no in the first place, leaving no room for reconciliation. You're getting mad at him or her for always trying to walk through a door that you, in your cowardice, left open. Let's be friends keeps getting tried and tried by the two people until the pain of it not working gets so bad that they blow apart, precisely as they should have in the first place. Perhaps two people will be friends in the long, long term. Heck, it's even likely, but it almost never ever works short term. You're better off not even trying. It places way too much strain on the person who is still clinging, as well as on the person who is forever trying to fend off their advances in the nicest way possible, at least until the nice ways are no longer possible. Breakups are never mutual. Like you, I've heard it 1,000 times from 1,000 different people about past breakups. Oh, it was mutual. It's never mutual. It's always someone's mores than the others. Always. Yeah. One person may have gotten coerced into swallowing it, or one person may have gone along with it, but it's never mutual. It's always at least 51% one person's breakup, though usually far more than 51%. So when do you have the courage to be honest about that breakup in your past or the one you're considering? See, you can't start being honest about your present if you're not honest about your past. You also can't start honestly expressing your feelings and living deliberately in the present unless you acknowledge that your feelings matter. And that requires acknowledging that you've lived as though your feelings don't matter in the past. Stand up, live honestly, and just be who you are. Stop running, stop cowering, as if who you are, your voice, and what you feel and aspire to do don't matter. It's time to live. Song recommendation. This is one of my top 5 favorite songs of all time. I've been listening to it my entire life, and while I loved it immensely, I secretly hated it because it's about breakups, and it's hard to have a favorite song be about breakups, much like the Carpenters' Goodbye to Love. But not only is this the consummation of early, brassy yet hard rock edge Chicago sound, it's a great message in this context. We're discussing the fear of breaking up, particularly the fear of hurting the other person and looking like the bad guy. But Feeling Stronger Every Day by Chicago gives a great message about being the person who was broken up from. It's a message of hope, but it's also implicitly a message to the person considering breaking up from someone. Don't be afraid, do the breakup. They will get stronger and they will recover. And if they have the courage to go into themselves, they will find that this no from you was a passageway into a greater yes, both from their own self and from a new lover. Back when I was an NCAA strength coach, a friend of mine who was an assistant coach for one of the teams told me that his favorite word as coach was the word no. Why is that? I asked. He explained, Sven, 2/3 of my job is spent recruiting, not coaching. At the collegiate level, it's all about recruiting. On field, coaching is so greatly determined by recruiting. So I spend hundreds and hundreds of hours every year calling high school kids and their families, trying to get them to come to our school. I may call a kid 20 or 30 times. One kid. Do you have any idea how good it feels to get the word no? You'd think I'd hate it. And I do, but I also love it. Because when I get a no, it means I can stop calling that kid. It narrows my list, not just whittling down my workload, but clarifying my list. When I get a kid who has the guts to actually tell me no, rather than just string me along and let me keep calling him, I love that kid. I respect that so much because it's a sign of respect for me and my time. No is such a gift. What's true in recruiting is true in relationships. The person on the other side of your no will recover, get stronger, get clarity, and move on to a greater, happier state in life. No is such a blessing. Feel the no. Feel what it will be like when it is spoken and moved past. Feel the possibility of new life, new happiness, and new love. So remember, we're giving away this signed autograph copy of There's a Hole in My Love Cup. To enter, just like, subscribe, and comment. Also, sign up for our Beacons link to get into the giveaway. Thank you very much for tuning in. Stay amazing, stay awesome, and remember always to keep it real.